A few days ago, I have uploaded my version of the famous Chopin Etude Opus 10 number 12 in C minor, the so-called revolutionary etude. As I am convinced that also Frédéric Chopin used the historical metrical readings for his metronome numbers, where every tick equals only half of the intended note value, I play this etude indicated by Chopin as quarter note 160 and 8th note 160, which is exactly what this metronome number meant in those days. As with many metronome numbers like these, if taken literally, as is common practice today, this etude is rarely, if ever, heard in the tempo of quarter note 160. So, could it be possible that my tempo is correct and current mainstream performance is too slow, according to what generally is considered to be Chopin's wish? Let's compare my version with two brilliant mainstream performances, one by Valentina Lisitsa and another by M.Pollini, and see what we can learn. So welcome everybody to Authentic Sound. My name is Wim Winters and this channel is all about exploring the music from Bach to Beethoven and beyond, with a single goal: to inspire you on your journey as a musician or as a music lover. And for sure, if Chopin would return only for 1 hour to play his famous revolutionary etude in C minor, the least you could say is that we all would be inspired by what we heard. Indeed, a performance tells more than a score, and certainly in the case of music written by the greatest musicians, a lot of detailed information on the true meaning of their music would be revealed if brought to life under their own fingers. Unfortunately, there are no recordings made from Chopin's playing. The way he played the piano will remain for always reduced to descriptions of contemporaries. Often references are made to the early 20th century recordings by pianists who could be considered to be second-generation students of Chopin to hear at least echoes of Chopin's own playing. But as we've often pointed out, those recordings reflect a performance practice of the late 19th century, not that of Chopin's time. Certainly on the field of tempo, it is very well documented that performance speeds increased from around 1840 onwards, where even for those 19th century musicians who still were aware of a certain tradition, it was not even an option to keep those old habits alive over that what was considered to be new, better even, and a result of an ever ongoing progress. But in the light of the unrealizable dream or wish we all share to hear Chopin play with our own ears, it is remarkable that the most valuable information on his performances is often rejected completely. Thanks to the invention of the metronome in 1815, it became possible for composers to accurately note the exact speeds in which they themselves performed their music. Of course, a metronome marking does not give us information on the touch, on the delicacy for which Chopin was unmatched. But the speed, the tempo of a performance does tell us a lot on the basis of his way of playing, since changing a tempo changes all other layers of that performance: character of the piece, articulation, phrasing, timing, touch, and so on. There is a weird approach to metronome numbers today. At one hand, those original metronome numbers are taken as to proof a performance like the one I made is too slow. But the same numbers will never be taken as a proof to the other side to show that, according at least to Chopin, performances like the ones of Lisitsa and Pollini are too slow either. Think about this. And also about the fact that in the way I see this problem solved, I'm able to perform 100% of all metronome numbers. How solid is that as an argument? When pointing to that discrepancy, however, the discussion changes to a common belief that metronome numbers were certainly not meant to be reached or even to be taken seriously. After all, what would good musicians like Beethoven or Chopin care about a metronome? One would wonder, of course, why so many composers took the effort of giving metronome indications for so many works. They could have saved lots of hours by just asking the player to play as fast as possible. The more, since so many of their speed indications are again read literally, no less than warp speed. Just spend 10 minutes on Google Book Search and you quickly learn how serious composers were in exactly indicated their pieces with the utmost precise tempi they considered to be ideal. Also Chopin. But even if he wasn't, it is a too far stretched argument that those extremely fast tempi never were meant to be played. Firstly, you will not find one single source in the complete 19th century to back you up for that. And secondly, it is an argument that simply is absurd if only taken into account the tens of thousands of metronome numbers we have only from the first half of the 19th century. So, let's have a look at two performances given by extremely talented players. And for the record, I am not criticizing their performances in any way. Both Valentina Lisitsa and Maurizio Pollini are brilliant performers that do not need any comment nor advice from me. Their performances are given here only as a kind of reference of what positively could be called mainstream performances of this piece. So, if we start from the speed indication Chopin gave, quarter note 160, we can safely state that my performance does perfectly match the ticks of the metronome. It is shown to you at the beginning of my video. Let's listen. Let me now give you a short excerpt from both Lisitsa and Pollini. Now, certainly after listening to my performance, the technical impression you get from both performances is rather impressive. Both performances share similar tempi as most performances of this piece do today. Yet, the tempi they take are far below what Chopin prescribes to be the basis of the basic tempo for this etude. Both players fly around a speed of quarter note 120 to 126. That's about 20 to 25% below Chopin's indication and 25% above the tempo I've taken. So, historically speaking, we are here in no man's land. Regardless of Chopin's own number and regardless of the discussion on single or double beat, quarter note 120 or half note 60 is almost by definition too slow for an allegro piece. If you would compare dozens of allegros from Beethoven to Chopin in similar notation as this etude, you will see that an allegro always will be around half note 80 and that half note 60 is preserved for more moderate tempo. Furthermore, Chopin gives a normal allegro speed for what obviously is an allegro movement. But even this simple allegro seems to be far out of reach for two virtuoso players with a perfectly accomplished technique. Only this aspect must make us rethink the original tempi Chopin had in mind. The burden of proof, therefore, is on the shoulders of the single beat defenders and not on ours. Diving more into detail in the score, we see also tiny little problems that at first escape our attention but point to important deviations of Chopin's own indications. For instance, Chopin wants to have clear accents on each quarter note, certainly in the runs of the first two lines. Let me again give you my performance here. In the two other performances, there is still a kind of accent at the opening runs, more in M.Pollini's version than in Lisitsa's, but where the two hands go together, all accents disappear. Leaving out these accents result in a rather confusing rhythmical situation, a problem that all performances share, where the first low C is felt as being out of time. Let's listen again. That first C, so important to reinforce the feel of the tempo and the bar structure, comes in both performances mathematically on time, but according to our rhythmical feeling, the C comes 1/8 note too early. And the reason is the accent on every first note after each jump. But seen this tempo, remember, still too slow according to Chopin, there is no time for a counter accent on the structural notes of the bar, shifting the bar structure to 1/8 note later, falling back, shockingly, on the first beat of bar 7. It is remarkable that so many, even legendary recordings share the same issue, since it is in fact a basic mistake. Another problem, according to the score, is the use of the pedal. Chopin was known for his use of pedal, and he was on the edge of paranoia to his editors for exactly copying these pedal markings. If we look at the beginning, those runs are difficult to give a deep, accentuated sound, even in double beat. The runs need to be played with full sound, but this aspect here is more difficult than, for instance, in his Etude in C-sharp minor, where the fingers of the hand remain closer to each other. In a much higher tempo than Chopin envisioned, giving each 16th note its own wave and time to sound, this becomes impossible. What is proven in both performances? Both players use the pedal almost constantly and need to use it during the complete runs to help build the sound. The fingers alone have not enough time to stay long enough on the keys to create this on their own. We could touch upon several other aspects, but let's finish by the way tempo is straightened in both performances. In order to make technically possible what is happening in the left hand and still give a little bit of room in the right hand, both performances have in fact a lot of sudden tempo shifts. More than one perhaps would think. The left hand in both cases is often paused at the very last note to give time to the right hand to try to sing. But see how strange this is once you know it, for instance here in bar 61 and 64. If rubato in Chopin's work in general might be up for some detailed discussion, in this strong rhythmical etude there is in fact no doubt that it was supposed to be played strictly in time. And by the way, just holding notes randomly for sake of creating time in the other hand is by definition confusing to the listener and to avoid at all costs. We're just got used to it so much in the case of this etude that we don't feel the disturbances of it anymore. This kind of rubato is for Chopin stylistically undocumented. Listen to Carl Miccoli, one of his most known students, and I quote, "In keeping time, Chopin was inflexible, and many will be surprised to learn that the metronome never left his piano. Even in his off-the-grid tempo rubato, one hand, that having of the accompaniment, always played on in strict time." End of quote. So again, both Valentina Lisitsa and Maurizio Pollini are truly great pianists and musicians. There is not a single word here meant to be taken against their performances, but I believe truly that when Chopin would return for a moment, we would be inspired, but perhaps even in a shock. Since one can have a debate on the reading of metronome numbers, that's not too difficult to have. But looking to mainstream performances often showcase problems that might form stronger cases for the other truth than one at first would think. So that was it for today. I thank you all for watching and reflecting with me on this fascinating subject. Do not forget, however, that we are all on the same side here, and let's especially keep enjoying each other's performances, no matter what standpoint is taken. If you want to see more of this, then hit that subscribe button, also the bell next to the subscription button. And if you really want to push us all the way to keep going, you might want to become a patron for Authentic Sound and join a group of about 80 other supporters. We have monthly video calls in which we chat about anything. Also, tempo. There is a link in the description box. Thanks again, and see you soon.